How do you provide round-the-clock surveillance to facilities with difficult perimeters? Large facilities, especially ones with obstacles like dense tree lines, can prove challenging for standard security cameras to accurately spot people. Enter the thermal camera. These types of cameras operate by detecting direct heat signatures from people and objects in frame. They can, with a much greater accuracy, detect people in challenging environments, including within tree-line foliage and blinding lights. And here I have one of UniView's thermal turrets. It's a powerful yet low-profile means of detecting people in concealed perimeters. In this video, we're going to show you just how much more a thermal can see compared to standard IP cameras in real-world scenarios like dense foliage and blinding light. First, let's have a look at some of the camera's main features. The first thing you'll notice about this camera is it has two lenses, one thermal and one optical. And the optical is so that you can still pick out identifying details such as faces, clothing, and vehicle makes. The optical lens also has a built-in 30-meter IR emitter so that you can still pick up details in low lighting conditions. Other features include SIP with active deterrence for warning intruders to specific camera zones, two-way audio for giving verbal warnings to anyone close to your perimeter, and a cable harness with audio and alarm ins and outs for connecting your camera to even more external alarms and speakers. On top of that, we also have our IP67 weather protection, and this model is rated down to -40 degrees Celsius for those colder Canadian provinces. We also have surge protection and support for internal micro SD card storage, which is handy if you want a backup of your footage. So now let's head to our test site and see how the thermal holds up against a standard IP camera. For our comparison, we've chosen to compare our thermal against a varifocal turret. We chose a varifocal so it could match the thermal's 7mm zoom. We then went out to our wooded area in the country to shoot our tests. This spot has dense foliage, perfect for our first scenario. For this test, I started by walking roughly 50 feet into the tree line and then making my way back slowly across the bushes and branches until I was just past the camera. I then walked back through the trees and out into the clearing. As you can see, the thermal picks up my heat signature very quickly. Meanwhile, both optical camera views are struggling to spot even the slightest motion. At the very best, our standard varifocal could hope for a motion detection trigger, but in a real-world situation, the branches that wave in the wind would set off so many false alarms and cry wolf so many times that the camera's notifications would most likely get ignored by whoever manages the system. For our second test, I repeated the same route again, but this time with two bright LEDs blinding all three camera sensors. In the real world, a situation like this might arise if a truck with high beams pulled up in front of the camera, or if someone wanted to purposefully blind the camera for wrongdoing. And the results are the same again. We see even less now on our optical lens, but our thermal is still spotting me and giving a positive detection. For our third test, let's take a look at the long distance detection of our thermal compared to the IR lens. Here I've adjusted the thermal's color spectrum in post for a clearer view of my heat signature. You can also do this in the camera settings. Even from about 200 feet out into the darkness, we can still make out a confirmation of a man running along this baseball field. Our IR lens picks up a ghostly sort of motion, but it's much harder to make a confirmation of character. As I get closer, both lenses start to pick up a much more distinct shape of a person running towards the camera. And we start to get in-camera detections at around 100 feet. Finally, let's take a look at a few shots of our on-location bullet thermal in heavy snow for comparison against a standard optical lens. This is a different thermal, but it's our best example of the superior quality of a thermal detection in bad weather. These construction workers are in bright, high-visibility jackets, and our standard lens is having a hard time keeping visuals on them in this heavy snowfall. The man on the right almost completely disappears into the background on our standard lens. But on our thermal, we still get a recognizable outline of him, and we see the same again in the second shot. a thermal picks out clear human outlines where our optical lens struggles. And this is a game changer for high-risk locations that require round-the-clock surveillance in every extreme. So as you can see, a thermal security camera is going to add a lot more vision to complex and concealed views. One installer note worth mentioning before we wrap up is we couldn't figure out for a while why the camera wouldn't detect people in frame. The optical could, but the thermal for some reason was having trouble with crossline and intrusion. After some troubleshooting and firmware upgrades, we still couldn't figure it out. And that was one of our senior engineers actually pointed out that the camera needs to be level with the horizon in order for the thermal detection to work. We had ours on a tilt during configuration and thinking it wouldn't matter, but it turns out it does. So that's going to do it for this video. Head to univiewcanada.com to find out more specs and information on this camera and many like it. Also check out our partners page to find out how you can get one of these for yourself. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more security insights. We'll see you in the next one.